Okay, so now that we know kind of what imaginary numbers are, what we're going to do now is learn how to add and subtract them. And this is actually really easy because when we add and subtract imaginary numbers, the goal is to just combine like terms. We're going to kind of pretend like the I is like an X and then just combine like terms. So let's just start with the first example. The first example says 4i plus 7i. Now, both of these have i's in them, which means that they're both imaginary numbers. And because they're both imaginary numbers, we can add them together. And the way we add them together is we just add 4 and 7 together. So 4 plus 7 is 11, and I'm going to tack an I onto it. So my final answer is 11i. Sweet. Okay, now let's do the second example. And the second example has an imaginary number at the front, which is the 5i, and then something called a complex number in the back. The 7 minus 2i is considered a complex number. Now, a complex number just has a real part to it and an imaginary part to it. So the 7 is the real part because it doesn't have an I, and then the 2i is the imaginary part because it does have the I. Now, we can still do it the same way. We're just going to combine like terms. The big thing here is that we want to answer it in a complex number format, which means the real part has to go in front and the imaginary part has to go in back of the answer. So the like terms are the 5i and the negative 2i, which are great. So 5i and negative 2i gives me 3i. And then we have the 7, which doesn't have any like terms because there's no other real parts. So we can just say plus 7. But like I just said, we need to put them in complex number form. And this is on your little cheat sheet, but complex number form is a plus bi, where a is the real part and then b is the imaginary part, obviously, because it has the I. But so this 3i plus 7 is correct. It's just not in the right form. To put it in the right form, we would do 7 plus 3i. And that's in the right format and the right answer. Okay, let's do the third example. So the third example is subtracting. We have 2 minus 6i minus 7 plus 2i. So the first thing we have to do on this case is to distribute that negative sign, because when we're subtracting a complex number, you're subtracting both the real part and the imaginary part. So I'm going to distribute the negative sign as if it was a negative 1. I'm multiplying every chunk inside that second set of parentheses by negative 1. So I'm going to have 2 minus 6i, which I didn't multiply by negative 1 because it was on the left side of the negative sign, minus 7 minus 2i, because that negative just flip-flops all the signs. So the 7 started as positive, now it's changed to negative. The 2i starts as positive, now it's changed to negative as well. Okay, now all we have to do is combine like terms. So I'm going to start with the real parts first because those are what has to come in front. So we've got 2 and negative 7. So 2 minus 7 gives me a negative 5. And then we have a negative 6i and a negative 2i, which would give me a negative 8i. So my final answer is negative 5 minus 8i. All right, one more example. And this one is negative 5 plus 9i minus negative 3 plus 2i. So we're going to start this one the same as what we started with the third one by distributing this negative sign, because we have to subtract both the real part and the imaginary part. The front chunk stays exactly the same because I'm not subtracting that. That stays there. But then the back part, we change the 3 to positive 3 and then minus 2i because the negative sign just flip-flops the signs. Now we're going to combine like terms. And once again, I'm going to start with the real parts. So the real parts are the negative 5 and 3. And negative 5 plus 3 gives me a negative 2. And then we have a 9i and a negative 2i for our imaginary parts. And 9 minus 2 gives me 7. So this would have to be plus 7i. So negative 2 plus 7i is my final answer. And there we have it, how to add and subtract imaginary numbers.